CISSP Domain 1 Last Minute Revision. Um, the Domain 1 of CISSP, which is Security and Risk Management, it's one of the foundation of the remaining domains because this domain talks about the principles and the key concept of information security. So, if you walk through all the domains, which is, let's say, asset security, network security, cryptography, or application security. So these domain will specifically talk about one single uh, aspect of it and the measures to put a control on it. But domain one tries to uh, bring up the mindset of security in the information security professional. So it starts with the CIA and its principle. Security is the foundation of security is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So, in order to protect confidentiality, uh, remember the key controls like hashing, digital signature, etc. is used. And if you talk about, sorry, integrity, hashing and digital signature is used for integrity, not for confidentiality. For confidentiality, we have principles like need to know. Encryption is confidentiality and availability. You can take data backups, the DR side, the restoration process. These are built up for the availability. So, in order to protect our core principle, CIA, these are the technologies that can be implemented. The second part of this domain also talks about the ISC square code of ethics. You will get one short question on ISC square code of ethics. To remember it simply, you can go with the acronyms PAPA, Papa, protect society, act honorably, protect diligently, and advance your profession. So this way you can remember IC square code of ethic. Then it talks about the plan, the security governance. Now, how to set up the process, the procedure, the mission, the objective, the strategy in order to build uh, g- envision or support our vision of security. So, governance is a very key aspect in this domain. So it talks about the organizational process. Under this, the change management, the data classification, the roles and responsibility, the control frameworks. So have a fair idea of what is governance, and it's more theoretical than than straight to. There is no binary answer. Like governance is is a perspective. It's a vision. One can security driving security operation is something which is, you know, it's it's very simpler process, if I can say. But how to run that process is where the governance comes into play. It also includes the frameworks, the laws, the regulatory requirement, because governance kind of gives a direction to the security operations. Also understand the difference between due care and due diligence. You might get some questions on understanding the um, difference between due care and due diligence. Just don't mug up the definitions, but uh, what a wise man would do given the situation. Due diligence is always about researching, and due care is um, the implementation or acting upon in the situation. Um, so have an understanding. Then another important part is the org structure. So when it comes to policy implementation, the topmost uh, position is whoever is it, CEO or whatever you call in your organization. The business owner, the MD or vice or the chairman should be the one driving the security. A CISO always reports to the CEO, and in CISSP always promotes the idea of the security function reporting directly to the business, because the simple thought behind it is that it should not be bypassed. So the only way that it cannot be bypassed if it is directly driven by the business owner itself. Uh, then security control frameworks. Read about the control frameworks, the risk management frameworks, the Privacy Act, the Privacy Law. There is FARPA, FISMA, uh, in Canada, PIPDA, South Africa, POPIA, POPIA. So the GDPR principle, the PCI-DSS principle, 12 principles of GDPR, 7 principles of PCI-DSS, have a fair understanding of all the laws, because I've been solving LearnZ app, and I've solved all the questions, and I've seen many a times you get quizzed on which principle is which of the following option is not part of the GDPR or PCI DSS. So have a fair understanding of all the principles, and know the next part is the policy, procedure, standard, and guidelines. Have an understanding of what is a policy. Policy is always at the top. Then comes standard, then procedure, and then guidelines. Standard is, let's say, an account management standard or an application security standard. So, standard is where you give the best, uh, you know, the best practice. Sorry, best practice is a guideline. Standard is a minimum baseline of security that should be followed, and the guideline is the best practice, but it's not mandatory. Whereas standard is mandatory, policy is mandatory, procedure is a step-by-step guide. Uh, then comes the personal security policies. So employee are always the weakest link when it comes to information security. So when it comes to hiring, so hiring a candidate, what all procedure should be followed, like candidate screening, the NDA, What should be done when a disgruntled employee is terminated? What action should be taken when the termination process is on? Then personal security control. In order to identify the bad activity, you can either do job rotation, or make the employee go on a mandatory leave. The rights to the employee should be given based on the need to know principle, and separation of duty. Uh, no employee should be the single point of failure. Let's say um there should be always uh, 2% rule, that for example, firewall. If uh, I'm just giving an example, that let's say there is only one person responsible for handling firewall operations, and if that person goes on leave, then who's going to handle it? So that's a disruption in the, not disruption, but a delay in the operations. So firewall is a very simple example, but that way any critical task in the business operation, it cannot, it's not just the IT operations, but it could be any business critical operation. There should be 2% rule. I mean, knowledge should not be given to just one person. So that's about. And lastly, the security controls like NDA, NCA, and agreements should be signed with the employees. Uh, then comes import export control. Read about Wassenaar agreement, where it is used, ITAR, then export administration regulation. So for cryptography, export administration regulation is used. Then trans-border data flow. If the PII data is flowing across the country, if the organization is collecting the data, then it should follow the regulatory requirement of that country. Then comes intellectual property. This is also very well tested topic. Um, CISSP talks about four IPs. One is copyright, two trade secret, three trademark, and four patents. So one thing that you need to know, the validity of all of the four IPs. So copyright is valid for 70 years. Then trade secret, it's kept with the company. It's company's trade secret, and employee needs to sign the contract with the company to not to reveal the trade secret to the competitors, and it is perpetual till the employee is part of the organization. Patents are valid for 20 years, and uh, trademark is a logo. Also, uh, uh, I hope you should also know the logo which is used for trademark and copyright. Copyright has C with a round in it, and trademark has a TM in it. You cannot use companies, let's say Apple's logo or Samsung's logo. Uh, your trademark should not be used by your competitor. So you have to register your trademark, and it takes 1 year for the approval process. And once it is registered, it is companies the trademark is given to the organization. Then comes the digital rights management, DRM. So so um, for example, on YouTube or on Netflix, the unless you don't have the copyright of your content, you cannot put it on the social media. uh, social media as in on the OTT platform. So that is what is called digital right management. It is uh, in the favor of the creator, uh, the person whose intellectual property is has to register for the copyright of their intellectual property, and that should be only used on the consent of the person. So that is called digital rights management. So this control is put on data at transit and data in use. So then also it talks about the type of data. So if you are dealing with the credit card related data, then it's called PCI. If you are dealing with personal health related data, which hospitals mostly uses, it's called PHI, personal health information, and the information which identifies an individual, personal identifiable information. So that is called PII, and every country, if any organization is dealing with the PII of let's say Europe, then it has to adhere to the GDPR regulatory. Similarly, for in the Indian for the Indian citizens, we have DPDP Act coming out, but that's not part of the CISSP. But it's a additional knowledge. And let's say if you're dealing with Canadian citizen data, then you have to adhere to PIPDA. So have a knowledge of the compliance, regulatory compliance, and why these are bought. These rules are for the security of the for the privacy of the individual citizens. So if a company is dealing with your PII data, let's say Aadhaar card or driving license or PAN card related data, they cannot sell it to any other organization unless they have taken consent from you. So this is one. Then I've spoken about the regulatory requirements, the PCI DSS, the 12 requirements and everything. Now the next part, I have also made a separate video on this, the risk management framework and business continuity planning. So in risk, you can refer my video that I have broadly discussed how the risk management process goes, the qualitative, the quantitative, and the phases in the risk management. Um, so I'll not go through it. One thing with regards to risk management is the controls. Once you have decided that you want to mitigate the risk, then the controls of the security risk mitigation controls are categorized into seven. One is preventative, directive, deterrent, corrective, recovery, and compensatory. So have a fair idea of what is a preventative control, what is a detective control, and you might get quizzed on a scenario and just to understand like what control is used or which control you will place. Let's say there is a strong preventive control, but still your the asset value is very high, so you can also put a compensatory control. So this is the decision that you sh- you will be making in any organization you join, or if even if you're appearing for the exam. Then comes threat modeling. Threat modeling is where you are um, envisioning the risk and the vulnerability in any application or in a in a system. So threat modeling is a predefined um, framework which you can use in order to um, protect your asset. So CISSP talks about three threat models. One is STRIDE, STRIDE. STRIDE stands, it's a acronym for spoofing, uh, TST, tampering, R is reputation, I is information disclosure, RIDE, and D is denial of service, and E is elevation of privileges. So, so these are the threat, right? Spoofing is a threat, tampering is a threat, information disclosure is a threat. So Microsoft uses stride approach. So if you're are going with, there is also MITRE attack framework. Now, what is MITRE attack? It is basically used by the organization to build up a strong security framework. Uh, if you go to the MITRE attack site, you will see that there are uh, tactics and techniques defined. Let's say for the stride, you see. So MITRE will talk about, let's say if it is elevation of privileges. So MITRE will talk about tactics which is used in the elevation of privileges, like how it can be exploited, and techniques, like techniques is the tool with which it can be exploited. So this gives an organization a very clear picture on what can happen, and this is to reduce the obscurity of the security. So this is how the framework goes. Threat modeling. The other threat model is PASTA and DREAD, and the very last topic is supply chain risk management or third party risk management. So, uh, it will ask you questions with regards to um, with regards to the outsourced vendor who is responsible for managing your critical operations. So, read about it and have a fair understanding on it, and it could put you in a situation like what should be done in such situations, what contract to be invoked. So have an idea about it. And then lastly comes the business continuity planning, one of the very important topic in terms of your career and in terms of the exam. So the MTD, MTR, sorry, MTD, RTO, RPO, I have a separate video on BCP where you will how the process goes, the phases and everything. I've spoken about it. So, yes, this is it. This is about the domain one. Thank you.